Welcome to the Point of Difference Rugby League podcast. I'm your host, Dave, and today we're going back in the day with a Souths. He went to Castleford, he played for the Bulldogs, also the Sharks. He had a great career, 261 games. The one and only Paul Mellor. How are you, man?
Hey, good, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate, it's my pleasure. Always love getting you greats on from back in the day when I was a kid, watching you fellas run around on the field. So
Yeah.
you did a bit of refereeing as well at the end of your career. And so what have you been up to in recent times?
When I retired in 2007, I did the refereeing for, I probably only did the on-field stuff for maybe 2 years or no, not even. And I was never going to be really that good at it. I could tell straight away. And I actually tried to push myself towards the video refereeing, which I really enjoyed doing. And that was before the
Okay.
bunker days. And where it was just like you were the sole person making this decision, and you had
I
sitting
appreciate
next to you the guy who refereed the under 20. So that was good fun. And I did that for probably 3 or 4 years, or maybe five. And just before I didn't, I wasn't doing it when they then progressed to the bunker. Recently, I've been probably well, the last 15 years, I've been in orthopedics, so hip and knee replacements, and I'm a rep for the surgeon during the operations and provide clinical
Really?
support to them. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. My dad worked in the hospital for 40 odd years, being a charge nurse in charge of all your hip replacement joints and all that sort of stuff. So you and him
Yeah,
would probably
right.
have a great chat. you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that sounds similar sort of stuff. Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. Awesome. Right, Paul Mellor, it's time to wind back the clock. We're going all the way back to the very beginning. I'll ask you what I always ask everyone. Where did
Okay.
you grow up? And what was life like for you as a young fella kicking around?
Okay. So I grew up in it's a suburb called East Gardens, which is I never used to say I lived in East Gardens. I used to say I lived in Maroubra because I don't know, it wasn't as fancy as Maroubra, I suppose, and I used to say. So that's in Sydney's southeast.
Okay,
And so I used to say I just lived in Maroubra, but it's actually a suburb called East Gardens. My parents are still there.
right.
And yeah, what was it like for me? I'm very, I felt I have a close affinity to my mother's side of the family, which is Maltese. And so
Oh, really?
actually became a Maltese citizen only maybe 5 years ago, and so that my eldest son he could get an easy EU passport and travel around Europe and work over there on that. And yeah, my dad probably was my biggest influence on getting me into rugby league. He loved rugby league, and I
Okay,
played from when I was probably three, I think it was. Like I said, I played the first, I think it's under sixes is the first year, and I played 3 years of that under
okay.
under 300, 405, whatever. Yeah, I played it for that many years. Yeah. My dad's 6'6", so I was like a huge child.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
oh, mate, I'm 6 foot. My 12-year-old, he's nearly as tall as me.
Yeah,
He's-
right. Okay.
yeah, that's unbelievable. So, what was it about the game that you loved playing, and what made you go back every week when you were a young fella and want to go, beat your body up every week?
Um, I think it was probably just that we were the team that I was in when I was really younger. We were always winning, and we were quite a successful team. There was
Okay,
like I remember one of my earliest memories is think it would be under sevens, the winner of each comp. So with the South comp, the winner of the East comp, and all the Penrith, all those will play together, and we play on Sharp Park. I'm pre-mod football, so I used to play on the full field. And yeah,
okay,
we for the grand final that we played on Shark Park. We won it. It's called the Tommy Bishop. There was a player called Tommy Bishop. I think he was an English player and
yeah,
he played in. Yeah, so it's called the Tommy Bishop Shield, and we won it
cool.
that year. And I suppose that's what I probably loved about it, that we were winning, was a successful team. And yeah, I don't think I didn't really, when I was young, I didn't used to enjoy the contact part of it. I used to just be quite fast and they just give me the ball and I used to try to run around everyone rather than through people. Yeah.
Just the way. It's about the same as me as a kid. Put him on the wing. I did not like the contact.
No.
So, so who did you play for? Like, so sort of through your teen years, and like, were you making rep sides, and what was that journey before sort of, making it to South Sydney? What was that part like?
Yeah, so that junior club that I was talking about when I was much younger was called the Morris Brothers Mustangs, and I did that maybe for 5 or so years, but I didn't love rugby league. It wasn't my first passion. I just happened to be good at it, so I just actually
Okay,
stopped playing again for a number of years, and I did athletics. My dream was to be an Olympic sprinter. Really, that's what I loved. I loved athletics, and I can remember, cutting out, things of, Ben Johnson and Cole Lewis, stuff like that. Whereas I would never have done for rugby league players. I did remember watching when I was younger the Panasonic Cup, which was on a Wednesday night with my dad, and I used to really enjoy that because we used to see the guys from Brisbane who, Wally Lewis and G Mills and those
Yeah.
guys who were like, and we'd only see them once a year, or in those matches, and that was it. So I
Oh,
used to
really?
love that. Yeah, so between probably my early teen years, I didn't play rugby league. Played basketball, and I
Yeah.
wasn't that into it. And then a friend of mine, Doc, he says to me one day, you should come back and play rugby league and play for South. And I was like, yeah, well, like in the junior rep teams, he sort of explains it to me. And yeah, from there, I think that was called Matthews Cup at the time. I think I would be 15 at this stage. And then 2 years
Okay.
later, 2 years later, I was playing first grade.
Yeah, I know it's unbelievable. Like, you've
Yeah,
got the record for the youngest ever player to debut for South Sydney in first grade, like 16 years, 10 months old. I mean, that
yeah.
has to be either exciting or scary or a bit of both. You know?
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that it can never be beaten. I was recently asked to go to like a South game, and they asked me about that playing at that age, and what I thought about it. And I do remember feeling like it wasn't like it was something. How would I describe? Like it was beyond my depth. I was actually playing in the lower grades and playing quite well, and it was probably the next step when someone did get injured in that first grade team, and that's how it happened. That I would be next to have a crack. So.
Okay.
It just feels surreal that when I look at my children when they were 16 to think, oh my God,
I know.
I, yeah, I just happened to be such a big kid. So it's sort of like it didn't seem out of place, but it did really for my own children. They weren't like me. I must have been a bit of a man child, I suppose. Yeah.
You
Mm.
wouldn't see it now, even if a player was like brilliant, like Joseph Suaalii. I remember when he was coming through.
Yeah.
Everyone was like big raps on him, but they held him back, until he was a little bit older, and he got a dispensation, I think, to play at quite a young age, but
Yeah.
still much older than yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not allowed to play at 16 anymore. I think you have to be 18, I think, and and even then, like you said, there might be some kind of dispensation to say he's ready to play, and then you're allowed. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it'll
yeah.
stand forever, that record, which is a lovely thing for me.
That's awesome, man. How good is that? So,
Yeah.
what was it like running out for the first time? You've got, Craig Coleman, Tricky Trindle, Jim Sedaris, and you had a young Craig Field as well coming through. What's that like first game and those memories like for you?
My first memory is just the speed of how fast it is. And it's something that you eventually get used to, but the first time that you're exposed to it, it's you can't describe it. And the only way I remember one time there was a camera down when my children were young at ground level watching the players, and he said to me, "Why have they got it in fast forward?" And I said, "No, that's actually the speed. When you're looking at things from above, in the stand, everything looks so much slower and easier, but actually on the field, everything happens so quickly, and you really, yeah, it's just quite." It's a shock to you because the lower grades, it's just a drastic difference. There's nothing that can prepare for this thing. And I just remember
No.
going, this is great. This is crazy. I mean, I never played any Origin, and Origin seems like it's just even the next level to that. So I just found you do adapt to it eventually, and it becomes the norm. But my
Yeah.
initial memory is this is how would I ever play in this level because it's just beyond me. It's so fast. That was my memory. Yeah.
So, did you do any special training to get yourself ready for first grade, or what were you like as a trainer as well back in the day?
No, I wasn't a very good trainer, and I probably unfortunate. I think it's an unfortunate thing for me that because I was just so naturally big, fast, strong, I just relied on those natural talents, and I was never forced to actually to have to work hard. So often
Okay.
I look back now and with a bit of regret realize that I wish I had have had that mentality to train harder, and I just didn't. And I can sort of understand why it sort of transpired the way it did, but I never really had to growing up because I was like just sort of the way it sort of progressed for me that yeah, I was
Okay.
the best kid and the fastest and often one of the strongest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So you sort of started cementing yourself in the team over the next couple of years, like 92, 93 as a winger and a centre. So, what
Yeah.
was your favourite position out of those two, and how did you cope with that weekly grind as you started sort of becoming more of a prominent figure in the team?
When I was younger, my favorite position was definitely center. To be put
Okay.
on the wing was a bit of a, at the time, was a demotion, so oh, I can't make center, so I'm going to play wing. And so I never used to really enjoy playing wing. It's funny, by the time towards the back end of my career, the game had changed so much. Don't forget, when I first started, it was my first year of football was the 5 meter, it was 5 meter rule.
Oh,
We
yes.
also had, it was center, we had a center, the centers were on the same side in attack. So we used to loop around. There was no
Okay.
center aside. The halves, we didn't really have a half either side. It was such a different game. So I mean that change over my career, the change was great. And by the end of it, the role of a winger became so important. And I think
Yeah.
that I really enjoyed that role. And it was like a bit of an extra forward.
Yeah.
But and the center role became you're pretty much just punching a hole in the center that's how I felt. Everyone runs this same play. They got the fullback sweeping around the back. You got a back row running this hard down line. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're either running that line or you're just outside the thing. And I didn't enjoy it as much. When I was younger, I used to get early ball as a center, and you had so much more time to actually do something. You could use your
Yeah.
footwork, your palm, which I enjoyed doing. But later on in life, I was like, oh, I much preferred to play wing, and that's where my career progressed to, I suppose. And I really enjoyed that part of it. I loved it. I loved to kick I scored a lot of tries from catching the ball above my head. I remember we had the AFL guys come out to teach us how to do that, and it was like before that
Yeah.
we'd all just caught it on our chest, and then they explained how to do it properly, and I was like, oh, wow, I wish I'd learned this like 10 years ago. This is
Yeah. Where were
why,
you guys?
why have we not been doing this? Yeah, it was great.
Oh, it's funny. It reminds me of Manu Butterfly, how the game sort of changed because he just became like an extra prop for the Warriors for so long through his career. So
Correct. Yeah,
I reckon he's
yeah,
one of those
well,
guys that helped change that whole thing. 'Cause that would have been towards the
sure,
end of
yeah,
your sort of career, 2005. He came on the scene, I think.
yeah. I remember, yeah, he was so damaging as a runner, and because I suppose he was fresh when he took his hit ups, he wasn't having to do all that defense that the front rowers and the back rowers do. So when he would make that run, and normally you'd get your winger in there early to try and really bend the line, get down, have a
Yeah,
quick play the ball. From then you got a rolling ruck, and that was such an advantage to have a big winger doing that for you. And look, some of the wingers now are not as big as Mun or myself, but they're probably stronger than what we were. They're amazing. You look at I don't watch a lot of rugby league, but when I see some of the Penrith, I can't remember their names now, wingers now, they're only little guys, but they just so strong, and they're doing that. They're doing the same role that we were doing, and which
yeah.
we started back in, that era that you're talking about. Mm.
Yeah, man. So 1994, will go down one of the great success stories for the Rabbitohs when they won the preseason challenge, the Tooheys Cup,
Yeah.
whatever it was called. But not only did you get the victory, you scored a try in that 1 point victory against the Broncos. So, what are your memories of that? And how the hell did South Sydney pull off such an upset?
Yeah, it's quite amazing because I think a friend of mine recently sent me, that was 94. And I think in 93 as well, we also did really well and we got through to maybe the semi-final. So for some reason, we were really good in the preseason. Maybe we started earlier than everyone because we didn't make the semis. We'd probably been the wooden spoon the year before, and then so we came back earlier, and the other people were probably on rep duties and hadn't come back. So we probably had a bit of a jump start, but we always went good in those preseason comps. I do remember the 94 one as an amazing win because that Broncos team, nearly everyone played Origin, and probably 75% of them played for Australia. I mean, they were an incredible
Crazy, man.
team. So I look back now and go, wow, well, we were actually able to not just compete with these guys, but actually on our day beat them. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's such a great thing that I can look back on and have because I didn't win anything else at South. I mean, my last year we made the semi-final, which was awesome, but
yeah,
otherwise I had a lot of lean years there, and it was a time when I wish Russell had bought the club 20 years earlier, and I'd been a part of
yeah,
it when we had this injection of money and the club was run so successfully. But yeah, that wasn't the case.
yeah. So, who would you been marking there?
I was a centre back then, so I used to mark a lot of times Steve Renouf, and
Oh
often I
man,
get asked who was the hardest person to mark, and I used to say Steve Renouf because he was like as I said, I was always quite a fast person, but he's next level fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
he just sometimes I would just give people the outside, and I think, well, I'll have the speed to catch them. But I did that to him once, and he just ran straight around me, and I was like, wow, that's like he's so fast. And then the next time I thought, well, I'll give him less room on the outside, and then he stepped me on the inside, and I was like, well, how do you mark this guy then? Because
You
yeah, he's
don't.
free. Yeah, such a good
You
player.
need three of
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, actually, looking back at that '94 year, you guys were on track to make the finals, but then you like kind of fell off a cliff towards the back end of the season with like a really like big run of losses to end the year. But you scored 14 tries. Was that when you felt like you were really starting to progress as a footballer and like contributing to a side?
For sure. And at the end of that year, they picked a kangaroo train on squad, and I made this train on squad. And it was for the first time I started to realize, I started to think, that the next level beyond first grade was going to be within my reach. And I suppose that's what, from that, I think I played one more, no, 94, I played 2 more years at South. And they were okay as well, but I did get a couple of significant injuries. I broke my foot in 1 year and I barely played.
Okay.
But yeah, after that, then that's when I started thinking, well, I need to be at a club that I'm going to be able to play with other players, or not to disrespect to the players that I was with, but as a collection of players, we weren't the equivalent of the other teams. Otherwise, we would have been winning as many games as those. And I wanted to be in a team where collectively the average player was a lot better, so that
Yep.
I could elevate my game and make a rep and make some kind of rep team. And that was probably behind my motivation to go to the Roosters at the time. But that's where it all sort of went wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, because the whole Super League war sort of broke out, and so because you went to the Bulldogs in '97, but obviously you stayed at South for '96. So were you originally signed with the Bulldogs when it all sort of, '96 didn't happen for the Super League, and then did you go back to the Rabbitohs? Like, how did that whole sort of couple of years play out?
Yeah. So when Super League came out, that most people, Alan Jones was the boss at my club. Most people just negotiated with Alan, and Alan signed everyone up to the NRL. And then three of us, I think it was Craig Field, myself, and Jason Sinclair, we had to actually go into the NRL headquarters. We waited around in there a lot for hours actually, because there was a whole bunch of us all in there just going. And really, there wasn't a lot of news about what was actually going on. And
Okay.
then finally, my turn came. I remember Phil Gore was in there, and he looked at me. They must have had a report on each player, and so I said, "Oh, well, you still got 2 more years left to play in the end," because I still had 2 more years left on my South contract. You still got 2 more years left to play, so you can't play Super League anyway. And he said, "We'll give you," and they gave me this number, which was a lot of money, and said, and it was to sign for 10 years, pretty much. It was a 5 years
Wow.
with another 5 year option, and you were signed to the NRL. So when you took it over 10 years, it was like, well, that's not really actually that good. And I'm like, if this other comp did take off and was going to be better, I was thinking,
Yep.
wow, I'm really locking myself in for a long time. So then I sort of was a bit bewildered and remember saying to my manager who was there at the time, can I just take it home and think about it? And I must have been at the time maybe 21 or 22, maybe, or something. I was very
Big
young. And
decision.
so, yeah, even though I'd probably played first grade for the last 5 or 6 years, it was still very early. And they said, yeah, you can do that, you can do that. And I took it home. And then when I got home, I said to him, let's just ring Super League. So, rang Super League, they offered like triple what they were offering. And I was like, we're going to do this. Then I went back to Alan, and Alan was furious. He was like, oh, he was using these analogies like it was war and saying that I hadn't stood in the trenches with my fellow comrades. And I was like, listen, I'm just trying to set my family. At this stage, I'd already had 2 children. And I was like, I had children when I was very young. I just want to set my family up for the rest of my life. And if someone's going to offer
Yeah.
me same and triple the amount of money to do exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I do this?
It's a
So
no-brainer.
here
Yeah.
I've still got 2 years left to play on my ARL contract, but I'm signed with Super League for the years after that. And
Okay.
then my manager says, we're going to go to the Roosters. I'm negotiating with the Roosters. I'm like, how? And he goes, don't worry about it. And so the Roosters, I go to the Roosters, they pay South a release fee, and I end
Yeah.
up going there. And yeah, and I just didn't play well. Plus, I was only there for half a year, and then I end up, and that's how. And then I eventually got to the Bulldogs. But the problem was, I'd been telling the Bulldogs, yeah, I'm coming there, but was always really wanting to go to the Roosters because I lived just around the corner from there. I thought, this is perfect.
Okay.
I leave close to there. They're going to offer me the same. They're going to take up my Super League contract. They're going to offer me the same amount of money. So when I finally had a falling out with the Roosters and was like, I want to go to the Bulldogs, they were like, well, we don't want you. So then I really had nothing. But I'd signed this clause in my contract where they couldn't make me travel more than 25 kilometers from my home. So they had to take me. So I just played
Oh my
third grade all year. They never gave me a go in first grade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not know that because man, I do my research and I know a lot. I had no idea about the Roosters. It was nowhere
Yeah.
in your history.
Yeah, well, I played the World Sevens for them, and I played all the first. I think we had two trials, so I played a couple of trials, and then I injured my calf, and I missed the first two games of the season. So when I came back, I went straight into reserve grade, and the first grade was going really well. I think they won the first like 7 games, and they had good centers. Matt Singh was one, another guy was
Yep.
someone Clark, and they were playing really well, and I was
Okay.
playing poorly in reserve grade. So yeah, it wasn't like I was being robbed of a spot. I actually wasn't playing well enough to get into their team. And then the problem was my confidence started going down. And then they were like not even pick. I was playing reserve for reserve grade. Yeah,
Oh wow.
a
Yeah.
horrible period of my career. And I suppose my focus at the time was this is when I've got 11 months between my first two boys, and I had two children under one. And I remember being in meetings and
Oh,
falling asleep in meetings. And yeah, and my training was horrible. Phil Gould actually, I remember one time held me by the hand and ran around and dragging me around the training oval with him, and was
oh my
just
God.
at me going, oh, what? How am I going to motivate you to train? And I was exhausted. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't swap places with you.
Uh,
No.
First
That
world
sounds
problem
horrific.
here. I mean, really, it's a first world problem. Here I am, 21, a professional athlete, and I played there for 5 or 6 years, but I just probably didn't have a great work ethic. I look back now, I wish I had a really strong mentor at the time who I could have spoken to. I wish I had probably more understanding coaches of the position I was in. And yeah, I wish it all had turned out differently. But I'm very lucky that I suppose it didn't end right there and then, because it really could have. I was playing back poorly and attitude was poor. And yeah, I nearly cost myself. I mean, I ended up playing for another, I don't know, 12 years after this, but how lucky it didn't end right there.
I know, man.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I did not know about that. That's very cool to learn. So you arrived
Yeah.
at the Bulldogs for Super League.
Yeah.
What were your feelings walking into a new club? You know, especially like the Bulldogs, they've got lots of history. Like your Terry Lambs, who's kind of, I think he came out of retirement for '96, then retired again, and then Hazamal Masri's
Yeah.
there, Rod Silver's there, Daryl Halligan, Steve Price, like a lot of guys in that back line you've got to try squeeze into. So, what's the thought process going into that?
Thought process was, oh my God, I'm at a club that doesn't want me here. And the only reason I'm here is because I've got this clause where they have to take me. So yeah, it wasn't a good feeling. And it didn't matter how good I played, I was never getting a run. We won the reserve grade by we beat them. Remember that jumper
Yeah.
that last guy came on? We played them in the final. I don't know what the score is, but in my head it was something like 50 to 10 or something. We smashed them. We had the best team
Right.
by far. I think our reserve grade team would have rivaled some ARL teams. It was great, but I scored 4 tries in the semi-final. There's no chance I was getting a run in first grade. It was deliberate. So I was like,
Unbelievable.
I've got to get out of here. That was my
Yep.
thinking. It doesn't matter what I do here. And by the end of the year, then the reserve grade coach, who I got on really well with, Steve Folkes, he was going to become the first grade coach, and he said, "Listen, I am going to give you a go, and
Okay.
it'll all change." And I was like, "Great." So I started off that season thinking this is going to be amazing. I'm going to be playing first grade for the Bulldogs,
Yep.
and yeah, I knew the history of Bulldogs, how great, good, the family club and how good they were, and I was thinking, finally, my journey from playing at South and a team that was struggling the whole time to the Roosters, me not getting on well, to not being wanted the Bulldogs, to getting to the Bulldogs, I was thinking this is the year. And then
Yep.
I got viral hepatitis. So it
Oh,
wasn't,
you're kidding.
it was the weirdest thing ever. We went away to this preseason camp, and we're all swimming in this dirty river, and I don't know what I got, but I wasn't allowed to go anywhere near the players. My liver was inflamed. I got
What?
so I missed half the season being sick, and they wouldn't even let me go. I turned up the training once, and they were like, we don't know if you're contagious. You get out of here. And they wouldn't let me go. I lost like 15 kilos. I was
Oh
like
my
the
God.
skeleton. And then by the time I came back, I was playing okay, but not really very well. And then a couple of times I got
Okay.
into first. I think I only played maybe, I don't know what was, maybe, have you got my stats there? Maybe 10 games in first grade for the Bulldogs. And then,
Correct. Nailed it.
yeah, and then eventually I was out and they just didn't, they weren't going to sign me for the following year. So again, I thought my career's over. My career's over again. Yeah, so yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah. So I'd gone from this player who I suppose I've got the youngest player ever played first grade for South. I'm playing really well. I'm making a Kangaroo trainer squad, and now I've just had 4 years of hell. Yeah, and then finally I get to the
Crazy.
Sharks, and I was like, oh, I just found my place. This is where I
Yeah.
should have been my whole career. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Sharks. How did you land at the Sharks after all the shenanigans at the Bulldogs and Roosters? How did that Sharks deal come about?
I don't exactly know. I remember I did play a game against them in first grade. I was a reserve for the first grade and played. I thought I played quite well. They said, "Yeah, we noticed you in that game, and we just asked if you're available and if you're a manager." I was on a tiny contract, and I was just getting performance. Like if I played this many first grade games, I got a bonus and just kept going. And yeah, I just went there. When I got there, I realized, wow, there's some good players here. There was some like,
Oh yeah.
especially in the backs, I was like, this is going to be a struggle for me to get in this team. And I
Yep.
suppose I didn't have a lot of confidence at the time because I hadn't been playing well for a long time and hadn't
Okay.
been consistently in a team and feeling confident. And that's really what was damaging me. And yeah, I didn't start in first grade again, but then Origin season came around. I got my crack when they played Origin, and then
Yes.
I think I never played res- reserve grade again at the Sharks. And I played over 100 games there as well. We made the semis every time,
Yep.
every year I was there, and it was sort of like, well, I loved it. I had such great friends there. The coach was a legend, John Lang. I just couldn't speak
Yeah.
more highly about. I just was like, wow, this is awesome. And then I had another. It's like there's two Paul Mellors. I had my first career and my second career, and I wish I'd had two of my second career. It would have been, yeah, one of mine a premiership. Yeah, loved
Yep.
it.
Yeah, man.
Mm.
You had to break into a backline. So you had Colin Best, Brett Howland, Russell Richardson, Matt Rogers, Andrew Ettinghausen, and David Peachey to contend with. But
Yeah,
somehow you managed to displace. I think it was Russell Richardson. Probably was the one who
yeah.
you took his spot, and he sort of
Correct. Well,
he held
he
it.
was injured a little bit when I first started, and then I would take his spot if he was injured. Then if ET got injured, I was taking ET's spot.
Okay.
But then when they came back, I was always going back to the bench. But I was used as utility forward. And then eventually it came to the spot where I was taking one wing. I was one of the centers, and I think Russell then started going. He then went to reserve grade, and then eventually he left and he went to South. Yeah, he's a great guy, Russell. There's no animosity between us. I mean, we got on so well. I would have loved it. We would have both been playing great at the same time because we would have been the centers, I suppose. And we did that for a little bit after ET retired. But then eventually, I think the team that ended up being myself and Chris McKenna in the centers, I think. And
Oh
then
yes,
Russell,
Chris McKenna.
Russell had moved on somewhere. Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice. So as you said, you actually you finished the season as minor premiers. You're going into your first NRL final series at long last. The Sharks are looking favourites for the comp. You're coming up against the Brisbane Broncos, who practically limped into the finals. Like they had a shocking season to start the year, and then they came home with like 12 out of 13 wins or something. And you guys absolutely blasted them off the field. It was something like 40-22 or something. Like a ridiculous game.
Yeah.
How did you enjoy that, your first finals match?
Is that the one where I scored 3 tries? If it is, that's the one I thought was like, oh, I marked Wendell. People used to ask me, oh God, you must hate marking Wendell. But I was like, I love marking Wendell. Because Wendell's the same build as me and just tries to do the same thing that I do, run over people. Whereas I would hate to mark someone like a Nathan Blacklock who would just be like, can't catch him. He's so
Nice.
fast, he's got such footwork. So yeah, Wendell and I had some good battles, and I think on that one I got him. I think I ran over him a couple of times and scored 3 tries. If that's that
Oh,
game,
good
which
stuff.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah,
Nice, man. Yeah, you guys came behind it. So, would you say that that's probably like the biggest point of your career at that point? You know, now things are on the upward trajectory.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that part is for sure. I mean, it's hard for me to remember the differences in those years. I do remember there's when John Lane was there, the 3 years where we made the grand final. We went the game before the grand final 3 times and never got to the actual thing. I think Newcastle beat us once, the Warriors beat us, and someone else. So yeah, it just
St
all
George.
blends into one.
St
Yeah, I
George.
just
Wow.
remember, wow, every year we're winning way more games than we're losing. We're right in their contention for winning the comp every year. So it felt
Yeah.
so successful. It was so enjoyable, and I just I moved my whole family to the Shire. They still all live in the Shire. I've moved out, and it was like I loved it there. I'd never spent any time over in Cronulla, and I was like, I love this place. It's just yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like my dreams have come true.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So how frustrating was it though, coming up short three final series, one game short of a grand final. Like that, you're just so close, but just
Yeah.
even though the Sharks look odds on to probably win the comp at 99, you just missed
Yeah.
that final hurdle.
Yeah, I've never really gone back and watched them because I remember that they are super painful when you put all that work in all year and you know how good you can play, especially the year we were minor premiers. I thought that year we were by far the standout team. I think we finished on 40 something points and
Yeah,
had
you
won
killed
so
it.
we've beaten everyone. So to lose that year was yeah was really upsetting. I remember the Warriors one was really upsetting.
Yeah,
I go into a tackle early and pass it straight to Motu Tony, and he
that's the one.
ran away and scores, and was like I was yeah, pretty devastated. And then I actually punctured my lung in that game and never finished the game and got stretchered off and straight to hospital. I've never
Oh
watched the
my
end of it.
God.
Yeah.
Mate, that game is down in folklore here in New Zealand.
Oh, really?
Just because that was the first time the Warriors made the grand final because of that
Oh,
game.
right.
The whole country went insane. Yeah, I had Motu Tony on the podcast and I actually met him in Christchurch last week when the Kiwis were here. And
Yeah.
yeah, mate, I did ask him about that try.
Well, he's a lovely guy. We played together at in England at Castle Tigers, and the
All
first
right.
thing he pretty much said to me was came up and said, "Oh, thank you, you gave set me up for that try," and I was like, "Oh my God, don't bring that up."
Oh, mate, you've gone down in history in New Zealand for the wrong reasons. That was an amazing game for Warriors fans. That was
Yeah,
unbelievable. One of the great games, though. Like it was on a knife edge for so long, and then because Brett Kamali had a great game. Like the Sharks, they were playing great, and it was
right.
10-all. What 10 to go, and then Stacey puts that kick through for John Carlo to score. What a game!
Yeah, I've probably never seen it. As I said, I got stretchered off and straight to hospital. Yeah, I cracked my rib. I got hyperflexed by like a couple of those big forwards, and it fractured it, but it didn't. It just stayed fractured, and all the adrenaline just kept playing. But then one time I'm running and it displaced, and one of the shards just punctured my lung. So then I don't remember. I've never seen it. I don't know what happened. I can't even remember the game now. Yeah,
That's unreal.
yeah, yeah.
Who knew? So you ended up going to Castleford, like you said. So what was it about the UK and particularly Castleford that drew you over, to the other side of the world, to the freezing cold to play rugby league?
So, although my last year at the Sharks was we were successful and we got all the way to the game for the grand final, it was a brutal year. We'd got Chris Anderson had come from I think he may have been out of retirement or something. He was the Australian coach
Okay.
and he came over to the Sharks, and he was the guy who was the head of the Bulldogs when I'd originally gone to the Bulldogs, who was like,
Right.
you're not getting a game here because you told us you were coming and then you didn't come, and I saved all this money to get you, and then I had no one to buy, so he was dirty at me. So I had a meeting with him when he first came, and he was like, "That's all in the past, forget about it." And we got on fine at the Sharks,
Okay.
but his philosophy for playing footy is the opposite of my philosophy. His philosophy is we're gonna drink hard, train hard, play hard. And mine is you don't need to train. If you look after yourself and don't drink too hard, you don't need to train as hard and we just play hard. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
manage the season, long season, and just get through it. Where his is just, yeah, which is like, I don't know if it's maintainable, especially for my body at that age, even though I wasn't that old. I'd played by this stage for like 12
Yeah.
years and I was like, I had some knee injuries that were chronic and I was like, I could not do another year with him. Like we would do fitness sessions every week. The game before the grand final, well, before the final, we went on to Stadium Australia, which was
Yeah.
like at the time what it was called, and did a fitness session the day before the game under the clock. So this
Precision.
guy saying you have to run around one post back to the next post in a certain time, going 21, 22 doesn't count. Like the day before the thing. That's his
That's
philosophy.
mental.
So I was
Shouldn't you
just
be
like,
like tapering and getting fresh
yeah,
for the
no,
game?
just train harder,
That's
harder,
crazy.
harder. We'll train harder than anyone else and we'll be the fittest. But it's like, I just felt a bit broken down. And I was like,
Yeah.
some people loved it. And he would probably say, well, it worked because we got to that game before the semi-final, but before the grand final. But I was like, I said to my manager at the end of the year, I can't do another year there. I just couldn't do it. My knee's
Okay.
killing, my body's, I'll be done. If I stay here another year, I think I'd have to retire the year after. And look, my mate who stayed at the time, Jason Stevens, his knee was terrible. He progressed and he just kept staying there. His knee is so bad, he needs a knee replacement. And he really should have stopped, but he just kept going and pushing through it. And it would have ended my career right there. I wouldn't have been able to keep going. Yeah, it was so
Oh,
difficult.
really?
So that's how I ended up um, at Castleford. At that time, I just said to my manager, "Yeah, let's have a look overseas. I wouldn't mind. I've always wanted to play in the UK, and I thought I'll stay there for 5 years, and I'll see my days out, and I'll retire over there. That's what I thought.
Okay. Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So, what did you enjoy about the Super League, and how was it different to playing in the NRL?
The difference is that the pace, the speed. So it went back to this speed that was like probably reserve grade here. And I was like, wow, now you've got all this time again. Like it's
Oh,
not so
okay.
quick. And because I was used to playing at first grade in Australia speed, it was like, this is good. And I was feeling like, wow, I've got so much more time. Problem is, I had knee surgery because I said I had this chronic knee injury before I was at the Sharks. I had the surgery straight after the season. And then I went over to the UK with this knee that had surgery on. And
Yeah.
then they said, well, that's a bit, well, you'll have to play three of the first 5 games. Otherwise, we're not going to honor the contract. And so then I was like,
Right.
I wasn't ready. We went over to this little island called Lanzarote for a dry
Okay.
weather camp. You're trying to train for the preseason in the middle of winter over there, and the fields are frozen. So we go to this place, and it's finally starting to come good, and it's got this beautiful weather. And I take off, sprint, and I just tore it again. And so then I had
Oh,
to and then so by the time I started playing, I wasn't ready to play. But I told my physio, the physio over there is like your doctor, and I told him, I said, look, it's no good. And he goes, I know, but we'll just go to manage you and get you through so you honor your contract. And I was like, sweet.
okay.
So he got me through the three of the first 5 games.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have a good season either. And the fans were
Uh,
into me. They were like, like it was horrible. And I remember they wanted the coach got sacked. Then we got Ellery Handling, and he got sacked, and we came last, and it was just a nightmare. And I was like, oh no, I've come here thinking I'm going to have this awesome experience, and I didn't. But the good thing is the second year I had this really great season, and I don't know
okay.
why. It just we didn't get relegated to the second season. That's why I ended up leaving. Sorry, the first season we just ran towards the bottom. But the second season, but my second season I played really well. I mean, I only
Right.
scored 2 tries, I think, in the first season. And this fan came up to me once and he said, Mellor, you're shit. He said, how many? And he was like, just giving it to me. He said, how many tries are you going to score next year? And I said, how many games are there? And he was like, what? And I said, how many games are there? And he goes, 25. And I said, well, there's 25 games. I'll score 25 tries. And he was like,
Yeah.
what? He was like looking at me like, you're a dickhead. You scored 2 all last year. Anyway, I think I played only 20 games, but I think I scored 20 tries if you have a look.
Oh,
So,
impressive.
yeah, I had this awesome year. And then I just ended up coming back to the NRL, which is like, I'd never imagined I would have done that. But I wouldn't have, but my club got relegated and I didn't want to move. I had 3 children over at school in the UK. And rather
Okay.
than move around again, I just thought we'll come back home and we'll do it at home.
Okay. So that's how you came back, and you did sign with Cronulla.
Yeah.
Come back home to was Chris Henderson still there at that time?
No, Stuart Raper was there then, and yeah, I
Okay.
really enjoyed playing under Stuart Raper. He's a lovely guy as well, and there's still a lot of players there that I played with before I'd left as well, and
Right.
yeah, I think we got to the semi-finals in that year. Well, as I said, every year I was at the Sharks, we
Yep.
got to that. That was another successful year, and I was like, wish I'd never left. But the
Yeah.
difference, we had a different coach, and he was a lot kinder in the way he approached coaching and playing and everything. And yeah, I'm not bagging Chris Anderson. It's successful, and he's
Yeah.
done so much more than I've ever done in the game. But it worked for him. It just didn't work for me. That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Some coaches man manage, others are just hard taskmasters.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
all different styles that get the best out
yeah,
of people, or the worst
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
So
Mm.
Yeah, you said you went close to winning the comp, but again, fell one short. I think it was the Dragons on this occasion. 28-22 defeat. Like at this point, you're thinking this is pretty heartbreaking,
Yeah,
getting so close.
yeah, it was. It was getting a bit like that, thinking like I'm running out of opportunities for this to happen, and probably just started to realize I'm not going to. And at the end of that year, they didn't. I don't think I ended up signing. Going back to, I signed again. Went back to South. So I only signed there for a 1 year deal, and by this stage, I must have been early 30s, maybe. Yeah, and so
Okay.
I actually said to my wife at the time, I'm gonna retire. I've had enough. And even though that's probably now young, 31, because I played so young, yeah, I'd just been doing it forever. And I was like, I had this philosophy at the time that I didn't want to play 1 year too long and feel like I wasn't able to play first grade.
Yeah.
So, and then feel like I'd retired in reserve grade or something. And I thought, I just don't want to do that. So I remember saying to my wife, I'm retired. And then I came home one day and she goes, well, Wayne Beavis is my manager. We've got an offer from South. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. And then they convinced me and I took it. But in my mind, I was like, I'm going to say yes, but I'm not going to play. And then
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that I did play. I didn't play well again my first year. Again, my last year was probably one of my best years.
Yeah.
And now I look back actually and feel like I wish I'd kept going because I actually could have kept going. It was only really that mentally I was like tired, but my
Yeah.
body was I probably still could have played. And I listened
Okay.
to a podcast of I can't remember, it was Kelly Slater was talking, and it was when he was a all these young players, all these young surfers were coming through, and he was saying to them, the people telling him you should retire before they beat you, and he was like, "No, what? Why? I'll be looking forward to them." Now, I'm not trying to compare myself to Kelly Slater. I'm just your average rugby league player, and he's a legend. But I was like, yeah, I could have played too, and I chose not to out of fear of not being able to or to finish not in first grade. Yeah,
Okay.
but I remember Winston Taylor said to me, it's good to be leaving when people want you to stay rather than staying when people want you to go. And that really
Yes.
resonated with me. And also at the end of my second year, I was like, I'm 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 done. And that's when I ended up taking up the referee thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that first year, though, pretty tough year for South. So I think
Oh,
another wooden spoon for South because they were rebuilding after coming back into the comp, and it
yeah.
took ages.
Yeah.
And then Russell Crowe came on board.
Yeah.
Then you had this really nice Kiwi contingent come through. Nigel Wagner, Jerry
Yeah.
Smith, Royce Atasi, David Kidron, you had Isaac Luke coming through. And you guys made the finals in
Yeah.
2007 after being
Yeah.
absent for so long. Like, how good was that? To take the boys in.
Amazing. And those signings, and I know it's been talked about by so many people, but especially Roy Asotasi at the time, he was like the premier
Yes.
front rower in the game. And for him to go to South, a club that was a really struggling club, it sort of made South a place to say that other players could turn around and go, oh, if he's going there, maybe that's an option for me. And that just
Yes.
changed. Well, now you look like South is a place where anyone would consider going to. But
Oh,
back in
sure.
when I was going there, people were probably signing me because no one else wanted me. And I was like, well, South would have me because I'm a South junior, but I didn't have a lot of other options to go to because I was but to get someone of his caliber, yeah, well, that had a knock-on effect. Guys like as you said, kids came and I can't remember all the names, but yeah, a lot of good players. We end up having a great team, and since then they've built and built and built to they won a comp and they're in the mix all the time now, and it's a
Yeah.
totally different club to the club that I could tell you some horror stories when I was there when in the early 90s when we were like this amateur club that was like run on like with zero money. I went and saw their high performance center the other day because when I
Yeah.
retired, they made me like a life member, and it's incredible. Like we wouldn't have. We used to train and on Redfern Oval underneath Redfern Oval. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it was like wow. Now they just have the most incredible facilities, and it's like I wish I'd been a part of it. Now it would be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's interesting though. I think off the top of my head, Souths were minor premiers in 1989. They didn't win the comp, but
Yeah.
between 89 and sort of the time you arrived, that sort of really, really nosedived big
Really.
time. Do you know what sort
Yeah.
of happened in that era?
No, but I know they were really financially were struggling at the time, and I
Okay.
remember as a junior, South Junior coming through. South Juniors were really wealthy and had the backing. there's a leagues club here called the South Juniors Leagues Club, which is really wealthy, probably all poker machine money. And
Yeah.
the seniors were wanting the juniors to take over the club, and it wasn't in the juniors charter to do so. And
Okay.
that it all just came down to money at the time. They just had no money. The year that I left, I'd had a meeting with them, and they said, "Look, we've overspent. We came last. We've overspent last year by this many hundreds of thousands. So next year we're going to be this much under the cap." And I was like, "We came last. We're going to come last again." And that's when they just let me go. The Roosters paid them a real release fee. So it was like they just they weren't really able to keep people. Like, yeah, well,
No.
as I said, here I am, one of their juniors coming through who's made a kangaroo training squad. And it's like I just asked to go, and they're like, "Yeah, you're going to pay us to go? Great, go." That would never
Right.
happen these days, but they had no money. Yeah.
No. Crazy. Well, at that time as well, I live here in Christchurch, had a Cantab, Terry Hermanson at South. He went to the Roosters as well. What are your
Yeah.
memories of the Rock, Terry Hermanson?
Yeah, he went to the Roosters the same time I went there. He was such a good player. I remember he had that big
Yep,
forearm thing. I think he broke his
that's the one.
arm, but he used to use it as a bit of a battering ram. He'd just run up, and bump people off with it. It was like he used to just break tackles like at will. It was amazing. Yeah, I remember just I wish I was smarter back then. I should have just like been following him everywhere and
Yep.
supporting him. But I don't remember doing that. I don't know what I was doing. Probably being too lazy standing out wide. But now, as a young, well, when by the time I got to the Sharks and played so much better, and I would have. He was the guy you should just follow and sniff around because he was constantly breaking the line, and then he had a great offload. So he was an awesome player.
He actually scored a lot of tries backing up breaks as well. Like he
Oh,
unbelievable
did
speed
he?
because he started out as a centre back here in Canterbury.
Oh,
Imagine
right.
tackling him as a centre.
He's got massive legs, doesn't he?
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
lovely
He's still
guy.
in good shape now. I'll catch up with him every now and again, and he's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
right.
massive. He's huge. Unbelievable. So your final game in the NRL wasn't that qualifying final against Manly, the South Sydney. You scored a try in your final game, even though you lost the match. But
Yeah,
was it nice to go out in a
yeah,
finals match, scoring a try, 261 games under your belt? Like, pretty impressive way
yeah.
to sign off.
Yeah, I'm super proud of it. I love that. I still remember that try really well, and I think that got us back to either level or only a try out of it against Manly. I think Manly went on. Manly were the best team all year. Manly went on and won the
Oh,
comp that year. I think they beat Melbourne. So to get even close to them, which I think they did blow out a bit, but at that stage we were close. And yeah, I feel so proud that was my last game. I didn't end up in reserve grade. A lot of better players than me. I ended up playing towards the end of my career again with David Peachy. And Peach
yeah.
came to South as well and ended up at right the end of his career. His hammies were gone and he was not the same player and he ended up in reserve grade. And he probably doesn't care. He played Origin, played for Australia. I never did any of those things. So for me, I suppose all I had was the fact that, sure, I was just this journeyman rugby league, but I'd never played reserve grade. I just was able to maintain my spot in the team. And yeah, I do find that's something I suppose I do hold on to. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You're very humble. I think you're a terrific player. I mean, to be so durable for so long, from 16 years old right through to your early 30s, that's a hell of a stint playing top level
Yeah.
rugby league.
Well,
Smashed it.
maybe I should tell my trainers that all thought I was the terrible trainer that I was actually not too bad. I just looked after my body. Maybe that's why.
It's a good call. Well, like you say, you went into refereeing. Did you enjoy the whole? Oh, well, first of all, how did you cope with retirement? Did it weigh on your mind at all? Did you know what your next move was, or were you going into a job, or like what was the story there?
I started to get. I did towards the start of the season when I decided I was going to. I did start to get a little bit going, worried, and think, really, I haven't put a lot of things in place. I had started a degree straight out of school, and so while I was playing football, I'd completed three-quarters of this degree, and I suppose in my mind I thought I'll go back and finish my degree. I didn't realize that my credit points had all expired, and when I tried to do that, they said you can't do that. That's 25 years ago. It's a long time ago now that's happened. So yeah, I did start to get a little bit nervous. My wife hadn't worked the whole time I've been playing. I didn't want her to. I said to her, "You go back and work." So she went back and worked. But then this referee thing came along, and I just thought, I'll just take it. It's just my NRL contract expired on whatever date, and the next day the NRL Rugby League one, or the referee one, just went up, and I was like, right, great,
Really?
I'm still employed. So I'd been
Oh,
full-time
good.
employed since I was 16 years old, and I just thought, well, I'll just see how this goes, and that was giving me a bit of comfort too. And then during that period when I realized, okay, I don't like this, and I don't want to do it, but I've got a job, and it was not as full-time and not as full-on as playing rugby league, I then started to go, right, I've got to look for a job during this period. And that's what I did. I just was able to now, without the stress of getting my body ready each week to play rugby league and play, I was refereeing, which is still important, but and I wasn't very good at it. So I just was then going, right, I'll find something to do. And that's when I got into the orthopedics role.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Were there any moments when you're a referee, where you get it from the crowd? Because I was at the test match in Christchurch here a week ago, and oh my God, like the crowd were giving it to the line umpires. It was pretty bad.
Oh, I refereed levels of footy that where the quality of football was so bad, and the players playing really weren't that interested in playing besides just trying to hurt other people. And I had this one guy who just, well, and as I said, I 100% admit I was not a good referee. I would see something happen, and instead of saying immediately blowing the whistle or something, I would look at it, and in my head I would say, "Oh, that's a knock on." And then I'd be like, "Paul, you're the referee, you got to do something." I'm like, "Oh, knock on." But it all looked delayed. It all didn't look right. And it was just looked ugly. And anyway, one player, he was into me this game, just constant. And so then I just went, time off. I called him over, said, "Captain, come over." And I said, "This guy has just sworn at me and said I was cheating." He hadn't. And I said, "I'm sending him off." And I sent him off. And the guy goes, I didn't do that. And I was like, "I don't care. I'm just getting rid of him. He's just making my life harder. I'm already struggling to do this." And I just got rid of him off the thing, just completely made it up, just so I get rid of him out of the game. He couldn't give it to me
Right.
anymore. Yeah, so and I was thinking, I just can't do it. I'm just not cut out to do it. So it was so fortunate that I ended up, because I just kept getting injured, I ended up being going into the video referee box, and I love the video refereeing stuff. I really
Yeah.
got into it, and I was, you know, as being able to see it from a football player's eyes at the time, which they'd never had before in there, I think
Right.
was able to really help them. You know what the problem was? After 3 or 4 years, I became a referee, and I used to see it as a referee, and then that's when I
Okay.
wasn't. That's when I became not a good video referee, and then I made
Right.
some big mistakes. But when I first went in there, I used to just look at it like as if I was a player, and I'd just make a judgment as if I was a player, and just make it quickly. And if I didn't know, we should have benefit of the doubt. Remember that
Yeah, those
pun?
were the days.
And I used to
Yep.
love it. Benefit of the doubt. And everyone loved it. And I
Man.
was like, this is easy. But then I became a referee, and then I overanalyzed it, and then I was not good. And that's when I left.
Okay,
Yeah.
quick question. Because my biggest annoyance about the current game is when they award a try, like on the spot, but then obviously they see something in the replays before they're about to kick the goal, then they
Yeah.
stop the clock, and the try gets taken off usually.
Yeah.
Do you like that because for the accuracy of the game, or do you miss celebrating a try? Because you can never really celebrate it until you see try confirmed these days.
I remember when I was in the referees had said, "We're happy not to do that if the TV coverage is happy not to show things in super slow motion and prove us wrong." And they
Right.
said, "Well, we'll never do that." And we'll say, "Well, then if you're going to try and scrutinize us with ultra slow down things, then we want to have the ability to make a decision based on that." Because imagine, remember, I'm just telling you how fast this game is and how fast it all
Yeah.
happens. As a referee, it's incredible. Like the ball goes up in the air, two people going like this, and you've got to make within a split second who touched that ball. The
Yeah.
referees who do it, they're incredible. They're so good at doing what they
They
do.
are.
And sure, they get it wrong sometimes, but only because we have in TV land able to slow it down to the ultra slow motion. It's like, "Oh, he got it wrong." Well, of course he did. Do you know how fast that happened? And
Yeah.
if you're going to judge him on that, he should have the right to say, "Well, I've got to have someone in the box who can actually also make a decision based on
Yeah.
what the slow mo video says as well."
Yeah,
That's
man.
my opinion.
Like I love the captain's challenge now. I think that's a brilliant part of the
Yeah,
game because if they get it wrong, you've lost it. And I love that as well. I think it's a really
correct.
cool way to sort
I
of,
really love
help
that.
out
I
in
love
that
it
area.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good, really
I
good.
love that.
Yeah.
But I love the Bill Harrigan days, the 90s and early 2000s. He just get everyone out the way, point to the spot, blow the whistle. No worries. If he was always if you think it's a try, just call the try.
Yeah, he was such a good referee. If you ever had him as your referee, you always felt like, oh, great, we're going to get this is going to be a good game. He made it
Yeah,
fast. He was the fittest. He even kept the teams apart, and it was always going to be great. I was so lucky when I was in at the referees. He became the boss for a year or two while I was there, and
okay.
he's such a nice guy. I think his persona in the media is something different to what he is. Actually, just the most genuine, lovely man. I
Yeah.
thought he was. I was so lucky. I feel that I was able to, even though it didn't transpire that I ended up becoming a good referee, that I actually got to learn from him. Yeah.
That's so cool. Did you ever have much to do with Tony Delaceres?
Yes, he was one of the players, one of the referees when I was there. I remember in the
Oh, cool.
squad. Yeah, another lovely guy as well. Yeah, so and yeah, he refereed for many years, didn't he? Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
Also a really good first grade referee. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my early podcasts about, almost a year ago now. I had him on the show and
Wow.
yeah, as soon as I mentioned you were coming on Australia, I was like, oh, we did some refereeing as well. I'm like, oh, I didn't
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
really know that. That's
Oh, you
good
didn't
to
know
know.
that? I did that.
Not originally, no, no.
Right. Oh, because they never really named the video referee, and I suppose I never made on the field refereeing, so I was never named as I was probably there. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so that was real handy to learn. So I did my
Yeah.
research, and that's fantastic stuff, man. So when you look back at your playing days, so to wrap up, what's the one standout moment for you? Was there any one particular moment that you rank above the rest?
My standout moment would be, I suppose, me fortuitously ending up at the Sharks. I feel like I'm so lucky that that happened.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I went to a club where I finally fitted in. And I suppose
yeah,
if I do look at myself as a character, I am not your stereotypical football player. A lot of probably I'm potentially being criticized that, I was a bit soft maybe and a bit this or that. And yeah, I'm not that kind of party hard, drink hard, all kind of things that I just wasn't that guy. So it was difficult to fit in, and I didn't really feel like I found a place. And somehow I found a lot of like-minded people where I was at the Sharks who
yeah.
were also very similar to me. It was a lot of It was a really family-orientated club, and yeah, that brought out the best in my football because it's amazing how much of a mental game it is, like most things. It didn't matter how many skills I possessed when I wasn't feeling confident and yeah, feeling mentally at my best. Well, I wasn't playing my best, and my skills didn't change really over my career, but definitely my headspace did. And when I felt like I belonged somewhere and like my teammates were my mates, yeah, that's when I played my best football, and I love that.
Awesome, man. That's so cool. It's nice when you find your place and your people. It's like,
Yeah,
sometimes you
sure.
spend half your life looking for it, it's bloody
Yeah,
fantastic.
you can. Oh,
Yeah. All right, now
yeah.
I'm going to finish with a couple of fun questions. So, do you actually support
Yeah,
any club in the NRL these days? You said you don't watch a lot anymore, but is there a team you get behind?
yeah. If I had to say I support a club, it would be the Bunnies. As I said, the Bunnies were very generous in, I don't know how, but I somehow got a life membership when I retired. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Feels like such, I don't know why, but I feel really privileged to have got that. And that's definitely they've got my support.
Nice, man. Okay, so what's your favorite TV show or TV series of all time? Like one that you just stands out from your lifetime?
Yeah, my favorite show ever is The Sopranos. I've watched that.
Yes, I'm watching it at the moment. That's amazing.
Oh, how good is Soprano? That's just I could watch it again and again. It's awesome.
Mate, honestly, I'm on season 4, episode 3. That's how in depth I am at the moment. It's the second
Paulie, the
time through
guy
it. I
with
love it.
the
I love
one of my favorite characters is Paulie, with the grey like
it. Yeah,
slick back
it's
hair
got the
on the
silver.
side.
Yeah, yeah.
He's so funny.
I love Silvio. I just think he's just hard gangster. He's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
cool. He's a tough
yeah,
old bugger.
yeah, for
Love it.
sure.
Oh, great answer. All right, man. Last question. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
It'd probably be a chicken schnitzel. I do love a chicken schnitzel. Yeah, or either that or vodka rigatoni. I do love that as well.
Beautiful, man. That's so good. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's taken us a while to get there, but we got there, which is bloody fantastic.
Yeah,
So,
great that we
no, I
did
really
it. Yeah.
appreciate you coming on, man. It's been fun.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, cheers.
No worries, man. Thanks everyone out there for watching or listening out there on YouTube and Spotify. I've been your host, Dave. This has been the incredible Paul Mellor, and we've been back in the day, and we'll see you next time for Kick Up.
Full time.